Okay, so let's continue building out this subheader. And the section we'll be focusing on now is the top 5 dividend yield stocks. And we are going to want to list out the top 5 dividend yield stocks in the current year. So let's take a look at the data set that we created. Now, under stocks, we had this one entry. Now, I've added a couple of more just so we have something to work with. But it's not real data, it's just dummy data, but it'll help us building our application so that we can just swap it out when we actually have an API. So I think we'll get started. And what I want to do is I want to create a new file in source, and I'm going to call it helpers.js. And we are going to be creating a function here called sort stocks by dividend yield in current. That's a mouthful. Sort stocks by dividend yield. Okay, let's just call it that. And we're going to be taking in stocks, which is going to be this array of objects here. And we want to operate on this array. We want to sort it based on who has the largest amount of dividend yield in the current year. So if we take a look at the dividend section of the stock, we can see that it's divided up into keys of year and amount. So we need to sort our array based on a key in this object. So let's see how we can do that. If we go over to helpers.js, we can start by creating a new date. And we'll get the year from this date with get full year. So if we log out the year, and we'll take this function that we just created and we'll go over to app.js, and we'll we'll import this function. And we'll call it. So we're importing the function and we're just calling it inside of app. And we're going to give it data.stocks. So let's do two things actually. Let's console log stocks just to make sure we get the correct input, and we'll console log the year. And then we'll save that. We'll head over to our browser and we'll see that we have 2020 here, and we have the array of our 5 stocks. All right. So we'll fix this warning as well. Forgot to give each entry in the list a key. And if you don't know, when you iterate over a list in React, you need to give each list element a key that is unique. In this case, I think we can use the exchange name because it should be unique for each exchange. So with that done, let's head back to our helpers file. And I just want to check that this is the correct type. I think it is a number. Yeah. And that works for us. So now what we need to do is we need to call the sort function, and we're going to sort it by the amount in the current year. So we're going to grab the year here, and we're going to do stocks unsorted equals stocks dot sort, and in the sort function we are going to pass a callback. So we're going to take stock A and stock B, and we're going to make a comparison, and we're going to be returning stock A, yeah, dividend, gotta keep your tongue straight, and year greater than stock B, minus stock B, dividend, year. Okay, so I'm gonna explain this. I just want to see how this plays out, what order we get on our elements now. So we're logging out the sorted array here, and I'll head up to the browser again. Cannot read property 2020 of undefined. Okay, so dividend, I think I misspelled that. I think it's dividends. Yeah. So, okay, let's go dividends and then year. So let's see. Alright, so now we have the dividends from lowest to highest. So that's the opposite of what I want right now. So I'm gonna flip it around. Stock B minus stock A. And let's go back. All right. So as you can see at the top, we have this stock, and its dividend in 2020 was 23. At index number 1, we have this stock, and its dividend in 2020 was 20. At index number 2, we have Yara, and its dividend in 2020 was 13. So we got the correct order, and the sorting function just basically what the sorting function does is it takes one piece of data and compares it to another piece of data, and then based on that you can either return 1 if the result is greater and you want to place it in front of the item that you're comparing to. So if stock A is greater than stock B, you would return 1. If stock A was less than stock B, you would return -1. So that's just basic. That's just how the sort function works. It expects you to return either 1 or -1. But since we are operating with numbers here, we're basically just taking advantage of the fact that we can end up with a number here, and basically whether or not it's positive or negative, it'll get the correct placement in the array. And also you can return 0 if you want to just keep the order as it is. Anyways, we got the correct correct order here, so we're going to return sorted.slice 0.5. So that will return the results that we want. If we had more than 5, we'd still only get 5 stocks. So let's go ahead and create the component that's going to display this information. So we'll head over to our editor. We'll create a component and it's going to be top 5 dividend stock list. Top 5 dividend stocks list .jsx, and we'll create top 5. Just gonna give it a name, and I'm just gonna go ahead and create the module.css file. Module CSS. Styles from just importing the module here. And then we are going to component. Oh, I put this in the wrong folder. I want it in here. So I'm just gonna move it and then delete this empty folder now. Now, we can go ahead and grab some of the code from the exchange lists. So I'm gonna go ahead and paste that into here. And then I'm going to remove this and remove this, and I'm going to change this to amount and this to amount, and this is now going to be a stock and this will be stocks. So we're going to have a list item with a name and an amount, and we have going to have a container that's going to say top 5 dividend yield stocks, and we're going to render that into a list. Now we also want to have the CSS, and that's kind of some of the problems with using CSS module is you don't get as much CSS reuse. Now, in my opinion, that trade-off is worth it, but that means we're going to have to take some of this CSS and put it inside this module here. And we're gonna call this dividend list and change that in the component from exchange list. Now, I don't think we are going to need class names here. So we're going to remove that. And now we are going to change the list item. You know, before we do that, we are going to put this component on the page and feed in the data so we can just see what we are working with. So I'm going to go to app.js and I'm going to plug this in or import it. Top 5 dividend stocks list, and I'll move it up here, and then I want to put that in here, and I think we also need to change the subheader a little bit. Sort stocks by, I want to plug this in here. So now we're feeding this component a property called stocks, and we are changing the data or sorting the data in this component. So we have our data in here, which is our mock data, and then we're feeding it into this helper file that's or helper function that's retrieving excuse me, retrieving the sorted list of elements for us. Now we also have one more problem, which is that we don't have the dividend or the amount showing up here. So what we want to do is we want to actually create a function that can return a stock object in the form that we want it to be. So if we take a look at this component, we need a name, an amount, and maybe the ticker just to get a unique key. So we're going to create that in the helpers file as well. So we're going to say export const get top 5 dividend stocks. We're going to pass in the stocks. We are going to we're going to call on this sort function, and then we're going to return sorted slice 0.5 dot map, and we're going to return a object that has ticker, stock ticker, name, stock name, amount is going to be, let's make this into a function as well, get current year. So we're gonna say const year equals get current year, and remove this, and then we're going to do the same here. And we're gonna say stock dividends year. Like that. And then now we are going to be using this instead of the sorting function. So let's go ahead and plug this in instead and see what that does. Save that and go ahead and go back to our browser, and you can see now we have this name of the stock here and the amount here. So we need to change a little bit about the styling. So let's go back and we go to the top 5 dividend stocks list. We say list item with 150 pixels, justify content space between, and then I want to go to the subheader as well, and we're going to say subheader display flex. let's see what that looks like. Okay, getting somewhere. And yeah, we want the display flex to be on the container, not on the subheader. So that leaves us with this. And now I want to take the exchanges component and give it a margin of 15 pixels. Actually, let's do rem and let's do 2 rem, so a little bit more. And all right, let's take a look at what we have here. Actually, 2.5 maybe. All right, we can adjust that later. But now we have our top 5 dividend yield stocks component. We're gonna do a little bit of a adjustment here. Let's go here, we'll say it's 200 pixels wide, and then in the here we're gonna add in NOK, and then we'll take a look at what we end up with here. Okay, so let's do one more thing before we go to the header, and I want to change this. I want to give it a div of a class name of styles container, and I want to wrap everything inside of the header with that container. And I want to give that a max width of var let's see what I called it, site width. Site width and margin 0 auto, and then display flex and space between. Sorry, justify content, space between. And we'll have a look. Of course, we need to give it a width of 100% as well. Let's take a look. Okay. So now we have the beginnings of our header, and we only need to add these cards in, which we'll do in the next video. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.